Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that digs through stacks of research to pull out the practical knowledge you need on complex topics.
And today, we're tackling something absolutely central to language learning.
Yeah, that big hurdle. How do you stop translating in your head and actually start thinking in your new language? How do you achieve real fluency?
It's that moment, isn't it? That pause where you're mentally juggling translations back and forth. It feels like hitting a wall.
Definitely. If you've put in the years but still feel, slow, hesitant, chances are you're caught in that translation loop.
Well, the good news is there's a way out. Our sources today, they draw heavily on memory science, on acquisition theory.
And they give us a kind of blueprint, right? A
Mm.
non-translation strategy. We're calling it the non traduzier approach today, borrowing from Portuguese, don't translate.
Exactly. It's about building a direct line, a direct connection between the word in your target language, let's say gato in
Right.
Spanish, and the actual concept, the furry thing itself.
Not detouring through the English word cat first.
Precisely. We want to bypass that old translation pathway and forge a new, faster, more permanent one. Think direct thought.
Okay, let's dive in. Section 1, the science. Why does translation actually trip us up from a memory perspective?
Well, the starting point, based on everything we've read, is that your brain isn't just like a passive sponge soaking things up.
No, it's active. It filters.
It's an incredibly sophisticated filter. Its main job, evolutionarily speaking, is to discard information, not hoard it. It prioritizes efficiency.
So what gets through the filter then?
Things that are meaningful, things with emotional weight, things that connect neatly to what you already know.
And a random foreign word, just a sequence of sounds.
Often gets flagged as, well, noise, irrelevant static. It's like someone telling you to remember a random phone number or a name you just heard once without any context. It feels like a burden.
Right, the brain just wants to dump it to save resources. So rote memorization, just repeating the word and its translation, that's fighting the filter.
It's a losing battle usually, because you're not giving the brain a good reason to keep the word.
Right.
You have to deliberately make it memorable.
And that involves processing it more deeply. Our sources talk about a kind of hierarchy.
Exactly, a depth hierarchy. You need to push the information down through these levels to make it stick. The brain defaults to shallow processing. We need to demand depth.
Okay, let's walk through these levels. Level 1, the shallowest.
Just the sounds. Hearing a word like, say, the Basque word for birthday, ertepetets, and trying to remember just that sound sequence.
Forget it, it's just noise.
It's linguistic static, yeah. Compare that to remembering a birthday falls in June. June is a concept, even if abstract. The sound sequence alone is much, much harder.
Okay, so level 2 moves up slightly to abstract concepts. You understand the meaning, like birthday, maybe even the date.
Right. You know what it means, but it's still sort of intellectual, dry. It doesn't really engage the brain's core memory systems, which are heavily visual and emotional.
Which brings us to level 3. This feels crucial for the non-translation idea. Concrete concepts and images.
This is where it really starts. Instead of linking the foreign word, say gato, to the English word cat, you link gato directly to a picture, a mental image of an actual cat.
You'd use something like Google Images, search for Gatto, and just look at the pictures.
That's a fantastic technique. You see the word gato, you see dozens of cat pictures, you're forging that direct link. It uses different brain pathways than just linguistic processing. It's multimodal, much stickier.
Exponentially more memorable, the sources say. And then the ultimate level, level 4.
Personal connection. This is the deepest anchor. If you can connect that word gato, not just to any cat image, but to your childhood cat, Mittens, the fluffy calico.
Ah, okay. Now it's part of your story.
Exactly. It's woven into your personal history, your emotions. It's not just data anymore. It's part of your lived experience. And the research suggests this makes it, 50% easier to recall?
That's a huge difference. So the memory isn't just the word, it's this whole web. Sound, image, emotion, personal link.
That's it. Neurons that fire together wire together. The more connections, the stronger the memory trace, the less likely the brain's filter is to just toss it out.
Okay, so we've made the initial connection deeper, but how do we maintain it? Because just passively reviewing notes or flashcards?
It feels productive, but it's mostly useless for long-term retention. It's boring. It's inefficient. The real key isn't review. It's recall.
Actively trying to pull the word out of your memory.
Yes, forcing your brain to do the work. That struggle is crucial.
But isn't that harder? People might just glance at the answer and think, oh yeah, I knew that.
That's the trap. That feeling of recognition is deceptive. It doesn't strengthen memory much. The real consolidation happens during the effortful retrieval.
You called it a drug-fueled memory party in the outline notes. What's actually happening chemically?
Okay, maybe a slight exaggeration, but basically, when you struggle to recall something, that tip of the tongue feeling,
Yeah.
your brain flags it as important.
Right. This must matter if I'm working this hard.
Exactly. And it responds by releasing neurochemicals like dopamine in the hippocampus. That's the brain region critical for memory consolidation.
So the struggle and then the relief of finally getting it, that's like a chemical reward?
It is. It reinforces the neural connections for that specific memory, wiring it in much tighter. And interestingly, even if you fail to recall it but then see the answer, the initial search effort still primes the memory. Your brain's been alerted. Pay attention to this one.
And this is the principle behind spaced repetition systems, SRS,
Hmm.
things like Anki or physical flashcard boxes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
SRS isn't just about flashcards, it's applied neuroscience. It leverages the forgetting curve.
The idea that we forget things predictably over time.
Right. So instead of reviewing everything constantly, SRS algorithms predict when you're just about to forget a word, maybe when your recall strength dips to 90% and shows it to you then.
Just at the point where recalling it takes some effort but isn't impossible.
Precisely. Enough effort to trigger that dopamine release and strengthen the memory, but not so much effort that you're constantly frustrated. It optimizes the recall difficulty.
So easy cards get pushed way out, maybe months away.
Yeah, and the ones you struggle with come back sooner, maybe in hours or a day.
The old school version is the Lightner box, right?
Right.
Physical boxes for different review interval.
That's the physical embodiment of the principle. Box 1, review daily. Get it right, it moves to box 2. Review every 3 days, say. Get that right, box 3. Review weekly, make a mistake anytime. Back to box 1.
So only the really solid memories make it to the long interval boxes, driven by successful, effortful recall, not just passive looking.
That's the engine for building that non-translated vocabulary efficiently.
Okay, so we know translation is inefficient for memory, but the sources argue it's actually worse than that. It actively hinders fluency in other ways. Let's talk pronunciation.
Oh, this is a big one. A major pitfall of learning through translation is relying on those awful pronunciation guides you see in older textbooks.
Like spelling out bonjour as bon, J-U-R-E.
Exactly like that. You're trying to map the foreign sounds onto English phonetics, and it doesn't work. The sounds often don't exist in English.
And native speakers can spot it a mile off. The source mentioned being ignored indefinitely by the waiter in Paris.
It's a bit colorful, but yeah, it signals you're still operating entirely within your native sound system. It can lead to misunderstandings or just sound very unnatural.
And this ties into a bigger issue you flagged, the split language phenomenon. It sounds serious.
It is, especially in languages like French or even English to some extent, where spelling and pronunciation have diverged significantly over time.
How does that work in French?
Well, written French often retains historical spellings with letters that are no longer pronounced. Think about final consonants, most are silent. Beau is beau, vous is vu, trop is trop,
So someone learning from a book, translating, sees all these letters.
and assumes they should try to pronounce them.
Yeah.
They learn the written language of Descartes, but then they go out and hear the spoken language, which sounds more like Descartes.
It's like learning two different languages almost.
It creates a massive disconnect. If you haven't internalized the core pronunciation rules, like which final consonants are usually silent, the liaisons, the vowel sounds that don't map to English, you literally won't recognize words, perfectly well in writing when you hear them spoken.
Wow. So translation-based learning can actually train you to mishear the language.
It absolutely can. It causes hesitation, confusion. You need to train your ear and your internal model of the language based on sound, directly linked to meaning,
Yeah.
not mediated through a misleading written form, and L1 pronunciation habits.
Okay, that's pronunciation. The other hidden cost is L1 transfer, right? Trying to map our own grammar onto the new language.
Yeah, this is where Stephen Krashen's ideas, particularly the monitor theory, become relevant. Using your L1 grammar consciously, the monitor can help a beginner string something together.
Which might get them some input, some practice.
Which is potentially good, yes.
Right.
Output can invite input, but relying constantly on that monitor.
It's exhausting.
It's incredibly mentally taxing. Gresham talks about constant vigilance. You're consciously checking rules, editing yourself before you speak. It leads to that slow, hesitant, awkward style. You're trying to apply abstract rules in real-time conversation.
And crucially, Kreshin argued that correcting those errors consciously doesn't actually build fluency, or what he calls acquisition.
That's the core distinction he makes. Learning about the language, conscious rules, versus acquiring the language, subconscious ability to use it. Consciously knowing the rule doesn't mean you'll use it automatically.
So trying to fix L1 transfer errors by just thinking about the rule doesn't work long term.
Not for building automaticity, no. Only getting massive amounts of comprehensible input language you understand allows your brain to subconsciously absorb the correct patterns. Relying on the monitor keeps you stuck in learning mode, preventing true acquisition.
We need to bypass the L1 structure altogether. Even simple phrases show how different languages are built.
Think about asking for the time. What time is it? If you took, say, the literal Hungarian structure, which might be closer to how much is the hour, and tried to force that into German or French.
It would sound bizarre. German is wie spät ist es? How late is it?
French is quelle heure est-il? Which hour is it? Russian has its own way. The point is, the underlying concept is expressed through fundamentally different structures.
You can't just swap words, you need the whole chunk.
You need the whole untranslated phrase linked directly to the idea of asking for the time. Trying to build it piece by piece from your L1 structure is a recipe for awkwardness, or worse, complete nonsense. It demonstrates you have to learn the target language structures directly.
Okay, so the mission is clear, no translation. We need to build vocabulary and grammar directly linked to concepts. Let's get practical. Section 3, the blueprint for building this non-translated foundation.
Right, we start strategically. Focus on high-frequency words first, specifically the ones that are easiest to visualize. Nouns, simple verbs, basic adjectives.
Like the first 600 or maybe 2,000, 3,000 words, the ones that give you the most bang for your buck in conversation.
Exactly. Those core words cover a huge percentage of daily language use. And critically, you have to make the learning materials yourself. DIY flashcards are essential.
Why not just download a pre-made Anki deck? Seems easier.
Easier, yes, but much less effective. Remember the memory filter. Using someone else's flashcards, someone else's chosen images or sentences, doesn't have that personal investment.
Ah, the act of creating the card is part of bypassing the filter?
Precisely. When you spend 5 minutes on Google Images, finding the perfect picture for Gatto or Chan or Hund, that act of choosing, that small creative effort tells your brain, this is important. It makes the memory far stickier than passively consuming someone else's creation.
So the rule for these DIY cards: target language word on one side.
And the picture or concept on the other. Absolutely no English. Zero. Nada.
Use tools like Google Images to search directly in the target language. Find Mosta pictures if you're learning Hungarian.
Yes. You see the word, you see the image, direct link, concept solidified, L1 bridge completely bypassed. That's the foundation.
Okay, foundation laid. But then you hit things like grammatical gender in French, German, Spanish. That feels like abstract information again. How do you embed that without just memorizing rules?
You have to bake it into the memory from day one, using really vivid, maybe even slightly absurd, mnemonic imagery. Don't treat gender as a separate rule. Make it part of the word's personality in your mind.
You mentioned exploding nouns for German. Tell us about that.
Okay, so German has 3 genders: masculine, feminine, neuter. You need a powerful, distinct image for each. For masculine, their words, maybe you imagine them violently exploding.
Seriously.
Seriously, their Baum, the tree. Imagine your chosen tree picture just blowing up, splinters everywhere. Der Hund, the dog, boom, bits of dog flying. It's gruesome, maybe, but it's memorable. It creates a strong, visceral tag.
Okay, I can see how that would stick. What about feminine little words?
You need a different, strong image. Maybe they burst into flames. Or maybe something less violent. Maybe they're all submerged in water or covered in pink goo. The specific image doesn't matter as much as its consistency and vividness. For French, la gare, station, is feminine. Maybe picture elegant women in pink dresses waiting there.
So you're not thinking gare feminine rule 7b, you're thinking gare pink dresses.
Exactly. The image is the gender information embedded directly with the word and its concept. More connections, stronger web, less abstract rule checking.
And this whole personalized, visually rich system needs that engine we talked about, space repetition.
Non-negotiable for handling the sheer volume of vocabulary needed for fluency. SRS, whether it's an app like Anki or a physical Lightner box, is what prevents you from constantly forgetting what you've learned.
Remind us quickly how the Lightner box works again.
Simplest form. Several boxes, say 5. New cards start in box 1, reviewed daily. Get it right, it moves to box 2, review every few days. Get it right again, box 3, review weekly, and so on. Longer intervals for each box.
But if you get it wrong...
Back to box 1. It forces you to prove mastery over increasing time intervals. Only the truly learned items graduate to the long-term boxes.
And digital SRS like Anki just automates this scheduling.
Right. Using algorithms based on memory research to calculate the optimal time to test you on each specific card, maximizing the efficiency of that effortful recall we discussed. It makes managing thousands of words feasible.
All right, we've built a solid foundation of concrete, non-translated words, complete with gender baked in via exploding dogs and pink dresses. Now, how do we tackle the harder stuff, abstract concepts and grammar, without falling back into translation?
This is where that initial foundation becomes absolutely crucial. You can't really grasp abstract words like, say, justice or change or honesty in a vacuum. You need those concrete words as building blocks.
So you use the words you already know in the target language to understand the new abstract ones.
Exactly. Instead of looking up the English translation for justice, your flashcard might have a simple definition or an example sentence in the target language using words you've already mastered.
Like justice is when the law helps good people. Something simple like that.
Perfect. You're connecting the new abstract word, justice, to a concept explained through familiar TL building blocks. Law helps good people. You're staying within the target language ecosystem.
What about easily confused words, like maybe daughter and niece? The images might be similar.
Good point. For those, you add a short TL clue on the card. For daughter, the clue isn't daughter. It's maybe fille de ma mère, my mother's daughter, or something similar in the TL. Again, leveraging known TL words to disambiguate, not resorting to L1.
It keeps reinforcing that web of connections within the target language, neurons firing together.
Wiring together. Every connection makes retrieval easier. If you learn that the A sound in French appears in mère, mother, and late, milk, spelled differently, you've linked mère to A, late to A, and implicitly mère to late via the shared sound. More paths back to the information.
Okay, that makes sense for abstract words, but grammar. Grammar feels like the ultimate abstraction. People say you learned grammar from language, not the other way around.
That's the consensus, yeah. Drilling abstract grammar rules in isolation is rarely effective for building speaking fluency. The goal is internalizing the patterns, not just memorizing the rules.
So what's the role of the grammar textbook then? Just throw it out.
Not necessarily. Think of it less as a rule book and more as a curated collection of authentic examples. Use it as a source for simple sentences and short dialogues that illustrate the patterns.
And how do you turn those examples into something your brain can acquire?
You actively mine them for flashcards. Break down each example sentence. What's new here? Is it a new word? A new word form, like seeing how I becomes my? Or is it a new word order, seeing the adjective comes after the noun in Spanish, for example?
So you make SRS cards for those specific little chunks, the new form, the new order.
Yes. You're isolating the pattern or the element that's different from what you already know or from your L1 and drilling that specific difference through spaced recall. You often end up mastering the pattern before the textbook even formally explains the rule. It becomes a game race, the textbook.
I like that. But what about the really intimidating stuff like German case declensions or Spanish verb conjugation tables, just walls of information?
Yeah, those giant charts, that's where you absolutely need mnemonics again, the heavy artillery. You can't just brute force memorize those.
Turn the data into a story.
Or a memorable object or a ridiculous scene. Learn the basic pattern once, then attach a really strong, maybe bizarre mnemonic to it. That mnemonic becomes the key to unlock all the words that follow that pattern.
Like your verb ending play idea. First person is a nervous actor, third person plural is a mob.
Something like that. You transform the abstract grid of endings into a dynamic visual narrative. It dramatically reduces the cognitive load compared to staring at a spreadsheet of suffixes. You make the abstract concrete and memorable.
Okay, we've got the non-translated words, the patterns baked in with mnemonics and SRS. Now for the final piece. Closing the loop with input and output to really get thinking directly in the language. Let's start with input, comprehensible input, CI.
This is absolutely fundamental. Stephen Krashen's big idea.
Mm-hmm.
We acquire language best when we understand messages, when we receive input that's just slightly beyond our current level. He called it I+1.
Meaning you understand most of it, but there's a little bit of new stuff you can figure out from context.
Exactly. And crucially, it has to be comprehensible. If it's just noise, you don't acquire anything, and your effective filter needs to be low.
Meaning you need to feel relaxed, not anxious or stressed.
Right. If you're anxious, that filter goes up, and the input doesn't get processed for acquisition. So finding enjoyable, understandable input is key.
And reading seems to be a powerhouse for this, especially for adults.
Hugely powerful. Think about it. How did you learn most of your complex vocabulary in your native language? Probably through reading. We can replicate that in the TL.
But not just any reading. The sources stress extensive reading or free voluntary reading, FVR.
Yes, this means reading a lot of material that you find easy and enjoyable. The guideline is typically no more than maybe 1 or 2 unknown words per page or per 100 words.
So you're not constantly stopping to look things up.
No, because that breaks the flow, raises the effective filter, and stops being comprehensible input. You want to be absorbed in the meaning, the story.
A good hack here is using familiar stories.
Absolutely. Read a translation of a book you love, or a book that was made into a movie you've seen. You already know the plot, the characters. That provides massive context.
Makes it easier to guess the meaning of new words.
For sure. And reading it while listening to the audiobook in the target language is even better. You get the sounds, the rhythm, the intonation, while the story context keeps it comprehensible.
Okay, speaking of listening, movies and TV, the subtitle dilemma. What's the hard rule here for acquisition?
The rule, if you're serious about improving listening, is simple. No subtitles.
Not even in the target language.
Ideally not, at least initially. Definitely not in your native language. Why? Because reading is faster and easier for our brains than auditory processing. If the text is there, your eyes will latch onto
It
it.
won't be training your ears.
You'll be practicing reading, not listening. You need to force your brain to decode the sounds, using the visuals, the actor's expressions, the setting as your context clues.
So if you need help, maybe read a plot summary before watching.
Much better strategy. It provides context, lowers the filter, but allows your ears to do the heavy lifting during the actual watching.
Input is essential, but fluency also requires output, right? Speaking and writing, forcing yourself to use the language.
Output is where you really activate and automate the knowledge you've acquired through input and study. It forces retrieval under pressure. It shows you where the gaps are.
How should we approach writing practice?
Write often, write quickly. Don't obsess over perfection initially. Then, crucially, get corrections from native speakers. Use platforms like Lang8 or find a tutor on italki.
And those corrections on your own writing are particularly valuable.
Incredibly valuable. It's personalized feedback on the exact things you were trying to express. That corrected sentence, the one you stumbled over, tends to stick like glue because it's directly relevant to your communicative intent.
Okay, finally, the real-time impression of conversation. That moment where you search for a word and it's just not there. How do you avoid freezing or defaulting to English?
This requires a conscious strategy. Think of it like playing the taboo game, where you have to describe a word without using the word itself.
Right.
You have to commit to staying 100% in the target language, even when you hit a wall. Don't jump out. Improvise.
Use other words you do know to talk around it.
Exactly. Circumlocute.
Yeah.
Describe it. Use gestures. If you forget the French word for elevator.
Don't say elevator.
Right. Say, the box, the machine. It goes up in the tall building.
It might be clumsy, but that act of staying in the language and finding another way is a massive leap for fluency.
Yeah.
It builds mental agility within the TL.
But that can feel awkward or embarrassing.
Yeah.
High effective filter potential.
Which is why you need crutch phrases. Memorize a few key phrases beforehand to manage the situation and lower the pressure.
Things like, sorry, I'm still learning, how do you say? Or, my French isn't perfect, please correct me. Or even just, one moment I need to think. It signals to the other person what's happening, buys you time, and keeps the conversation going without resorting to L1.
So the whole path, memory science, non-translation, SRS, mnemonics, input, output, taboo game, crutch phrases, it all points back to that core idea. Non traduire.
It really is the central principle. Building direct connections.
Yeah.
Thinking in the language, not just about it through the lens of your native tongue, that's the shift from slow decoding to fluid automatic thought.
It's fascinating how this connects back to the idea that adults can learn languages potentially faster than kids by using these more sophisticated conscious strategies like pattern spotting and memory techniques.
We can leverage our developed cognitive abilities, absolutely, and this intense process of building new neural pathways, forcing direct connections, avoiding the well-worn L1 tracks, it seemed to have broader benefits too.
You're thinking about the cognitive reserve aspect.
Exactly. We've seen pretty compelling research linking active bilingualism with increased cognitive resilience. That often cited finding about bilinguals showing symptoms of dementia and Alzheimer's, on average something like 5 years later than comparable monolinguals.
5 years is significant.
It really is. While correlation isn't causation, it strongly suggests that the constant mental workout involved in managing multiple languages, especially if you're actively thinking directly in them and inhibiting the other, builds a more robust, flexible brain.
So as a final thought for our listeners, if committing to this non-translation principle, thinking directly in your new language, can strengthen those neural connections so profoundly, what other cognitive benefits beyond just language fluency might you be unlocking for your future self by embracing this approach today?
It's powerful motivation, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not just learning to chat on holiday. You might actually be investing in the long-term health of your brain.